All right, this meeting is being recorded.
All
Another
right.
episode of the Square and Compass podcast. I am here with, I am sure, very happy or very relieved, worshipful brother JP of Doric Lodge 316 because, as we were talking about offline, he's been the worshipful master of Doric Lodge for 4 years, just got out of the East. Had to, as many worshipful masters did, kind of had to steward the lodge through the challenging times of COVID and everything else. And now you get to be the IPM, which is a fun, well, not an IPM anymore, but as a past master, I know how much fun it is to get out of to move on to the IPM chair. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Happy to be here, Cameron.
Yeah. So, you're kind of an interesting guest because as we were discussing, right, I was hoping to talk about, first of all, just fraternal ties in general, right? What is it? Kind of the services it provides. Visiting you guys at the Grand Lodge annual communication in Toronto, or now, I guess, Northern Toronto, Markham Unionville is something I always look forward to doing. But also talking about fraternal ties use of social media and posting content, specifically Masonic content. So why don't we start with the former? Tell us about Fraternal Ties.
Okay, so Fraternal Ties started about a few months right after I was initiated into Doric Lodge number 316. I never wore suit. I'm a graphic designer, so I don't have that in my closet. I don't have a long sleeve. I don't have neckties. And when I became a Freemason, I thought it's about time that I get a necktie and suit and all that, right? I wanted to have a Masonic necktie. And I was searching online, and everything that I can find are you've seen one of those very colorful Masonic neckties, right? Printed on polyester and very loud. So I didn't want them. And I spent several days just, searching the internet looking for an appropriate tie. And it's funny because my wife, she saw my frustration and she's like, well, you're a graphic designer. Why not just, design one and have somebody make one for you? And that's exactly what I did. We found a manufacturer and we paid them to make a tie. And apparently what we paid them is enough to make two, right? So when it finally arrived, I kept one for myself and the other one I auctioned off for 99 cents. And it became quite a discussion between my wife and I because she's like, are you crazy? Why are you selling that for 99 cents? And I'm like, well, I'm doing an experiment. I want to see what will happen, right? And after about only just a few hours, the bidding went higher than what were expected. And that's when we figured out that there's something in there, right? So we took the earnings and had that reinvested. We made more neckties, and it just blew up from there. The name Fraternal Ties actually was from I was a demule in the Philippines. I became a demule in my early teens, and I immigrated here in Canada in 2004. So I was a full-grown adult when I moved here. Um, Back home during I would see the communications between demules and Freemasons because the demules they're sponsored by Masonic bodies, right? And on the communications, there's always that mention of the fraternal ties, the fraternal tie between this and that, and it just stuck. So when we built the business, I searched if anyone has taken fraternalties.com, and to my surprise, it was never registered, right? Because if you register at .com and then you let it go, it will show a record that it's been registered before. Fraternal Ties was never registered, so it feels good that it seems like it was waiting for us to take it. And yeah, that's how we began Fraternal Ties.
And when did the traveling portion of Fraternal Ties begin? Because we just talked, right? You have a Masonic event you're heading to today.
Yes.
Your Instagram page is usually full, if not of Masonic memes, which we'll talk about, of your travels. You're at Grand Lodge.
Right.
You might be coming to Windsor pretty soon. So
Yes.
when did it go from, the initial auctioning off the tie and the bidding wars and that to actually traveling to Masonic events throughout? I was going to ask, and also, I know you traveled
Right.
throughout Ontario. Ever traveled outside of Ontario for Masonic events?
Um, Let me think. No, I don't think so. I'm kind of landlocked in here. The traveling, I'm not exactly a traveling man. Well, until recently. I was talking about this during my last worshipful master remark that I was clinically diagnosed with PTSD, okay, and severe anxiety from years ago, and that prevented me from actually going out and talking and mingling with people. It was very difficult for me. But because we're trying to do the business and all that, the first time I traveled representing the business was in Grand Lodge of either 2009 or no, it's 2010. That was the very first time I think I traveled. If I remember correctly, it was Brother Chris Hoda, the author of Freemasonry for Dummies. He was the speaker at that time at Grand Lodge. I went there. I was fanboying. I bought a book and made him sign it, and it was great. I gave him one of my Canadian neckties, and he mentioned it on his blog. To this day, you can look it up and you'll see it there. So that was quite an awesome experience. After that, I didn't, the number of times that I actually went to Grand Lodge representing Fraternal Ties, I can count with one hand. I think it may seem like I travel a lot, which I do actually, because I like doing the final charges. It's an opportunity for me, a man with anxiety, to speak out without the fear of ridicule or getting bullied. So I take that opportunity. If a lodge nearby need help with the charge or the working tools, I'm there. But as far as going to Grand Lodge and other events, sometimes it needs a little bit more of a motivation for me to go out and be there. But once I'm there, I actually do enjoy it anyhow. So
Despite the name Fraternal Ties, right? The thing I really love about Fraternal Ties is all of the different items and products that you guys have
yes.
outside of, and I've always been curious, it's really fascinating if you've been a Mason for long enough. I mean, I joined in 2007. Pretty quickly, if you're active, you start to get a nice little collection of coins, of pins, of whatever it might be. And you sometimes you get those as gifts when you travel. Sometimes you get them and give them away as gifts. Sometimes you pick them up on your travels through shops like Fraternal Ties. When you're looking at designing a new Masonic product, I'm always curious, like, what is that process like for you guys when you're, especially with your background as a graphic designer, right? What type of things go into um, deciding the type of Masonic item or product that you guys are going to create, knowing full well that will probably end up in somebody's collection at some point of Masonic items and Masonic treasures?
A lot of my designs I draw from personal experiences. Like if you see the logo at the back, right? The that came from it's a painting of mine, and it used to not have an eye patch. And you see there's three tiers that if you connect them, they form a triangle, right? It used to be just a painting of a skull, but during the early years of Fraternal Ties, my both my in-laws passed away, my dad passed away, and then but at almost the same time, my wife and I, we had kids. We have the our middle child and the twins. So three souls were taken, and then they in a way got replaced, and that got integrated right there in our logo. Now, our twins were diagnosed with a condition. It's a visual condition. They can barely see on their one of their eyes, and they had an operation when they were about half a year old. And from there, we have to put an eye patch on one of their eyes for up to 4 hours a day. And that's how it found its way on our logo right there. That's why the logo is wearing an eye patch, right? So my design process is a lot of it is personal, but I'm surprised because some of my most popular designs are actually, it just came to me. I design it and work on it for 10 minutes, and it went on to become like it's a hit, right? So I feel like there's a popular artist back then, and he would talk about a muse, that it would the muse will come to his head, and he's not exactly sure where it's coming from, and sometimes it just works. Sometimes for me, it's a series of tweaks and constant updates. Like there's a typographic artwork that I created. I posted it in my social media page yesterday. It's an image of the square and compasses, and if you look closely, the square and compasses is actually made up of words that you can find in our the ritual in the Book of Constitution. I just took some words and put them together until it formed the square and compasses. And then on the background is a silhouette of a lodge. If you look at it from afar, you'll make out the lodge, and it's actually based on the design of George Washington's apron that was apparently given to him by Lafayette, which was, according to the story, it was made by Lafayette's wife. But recent studies shows that it actually came from China, the that apron that George Washington used to own. That particular design, it actually took me about 3 years to finish. It's constantly in my head, but it's not something that I can just continuously work on. So yeah, but as for the meme designs, a lot of it is drawn from just whatever happened in my personal life or what happened with Lodge and my dealings with Freemasons online.
It's always interesting, right? How like you design something, or you do, or you say something, or you write something, just in general, right? That you think of as being very personal or coming from a personal place, but those things tend to resonate with a lot of people, right? Which makes make you think that maybe people aren't so different, or at least our experiences aren't so different, right? If a
It's an
personal
illusion,
drawing,
yes. That's
right?
right.
Something personal can be, if a personal creation, or kind of a personal idea can become, can resonate with a lot of different people, right? Then maybe we all are kind of going through the same stuff. So that's very cool.
If I can add something to that, I believe that every lodge need to have at least one graphic designer in their membership, because if you look back into the history, and if it's true that Freemasonry have an affinity to how the ancient Egyptian philosophers would do it, look at the way the ancient Egyptians would ornament their walls with their stories. It's exactly like a magazine layout, and to this day, graphic artists do the same layout. So it's a grid with. What I'm saying is, design has power. Okay, because I can go on and on and make a rousing speech about a certain topic, and that is good, but a visual, it's true that it can speak 1,000 words, and especially if you find a way to make that relatable, it people really remember it.
No, I think you're absolutely right, and that brings up a kind of a whole. There's like a rabbit hole we could go down there of a division of labor in a lodge, or like trying to take advantage of the skills existing within a lodge and its membership, right? And there's no reason, for example, why a lodge summons can't be professionally designed.
Oh yes.
By that doesn't mean you have to pay for it necessarily, but if you have a graphic designer in your lodge,
Yeah.
who, professionally designs things. Can he design your lodge summons, or can he design, like we just did here in Windsor, a soda pop tasting, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it was, I mean, I organized it. I just put like the different names of the soda pop on like a piece of paper, and people could vote what their favorite
Right.
type was. But could we have a graphic designer, actually design some fancy scorecards or vote cards or
Yeah.
something, right? Like,
Yeah.
taking advantage of the skills that your lodge has, and um, especially with the advent of technology and the way some people have it, there's probably a lot of people who have skills that we aren't tapping into in our
Right.
lodges,
Right.
which could make the lodge a more interesting experience.
That's interesting because so I stepped down last Wednesday, right? And one of the Freemasons there, Right Worshipful Brother Michael Litvak, he made like a little bit of a speech before we closed the lodge, and he was talking about how the term WM, Worshipful Master, and he's giving credit for this to another brother, Right Worshipful Brother Isaac Lazar. I'm not sure if you know him, but he's saying that WM can also stands for the what's the term, workplace man. Welcome to management. You know, and that's exactly what it is. As a worshipful master, you got to learn and look and find out the hidden talents here and there, and you got to figure out how to awaken it from from your lodge brothers, so that way you don't get you won't drown yourself with the multitude of things that you have to do in order to successfully manage the lodge. And talking about graphics, people react very good at it, because if you can present your information well, it really shows that thought and effort went into planning those things, and people react to that pretty well. Before the pandemic, our lodge actually almost died. We were the problem lodge in our district. We we call each other the misfits. Um, because we were made up of mostly young guys, and we didn't have a lot of older past masters. We were dying in every sense of the world. I mean, the word. Um, I was actually the junior warden, and I kind of skipped our senior warden to become the worshipful master. I've spoken to some of the past masters who want to return the charter and just close the lodge, because our metric shows that we will not survive at all, right? And I'm like, maybe you can give my term a chance, give me 1 year, and we'll see if we can turn things around. And in my first meeting, it went so bad, we weren't able to make a quorum. We had to go home, and that's my very first meeting as a worshipful master, right? And that led us to doing a lot of soul searching and trying to figure out what's wrong. And one of the things that came up is it's actually the way we do our banquets. Okay. Because we're younger guys, we're most of us are okay with hamburger or pizza, and just a single table and everyone will just talk, right? And we figured that that has to change. And oh, that's why I mentioned Herodom. My secretary, our current secretary, and I traveled to Herodom Lodge. We were invited, and we were completely amazed by the way they did the openings and closing, and most especially the banquet. It's a candlelight banquet, and they have like a table lodge, a watered down table lodge ceremony of opening and closing the banquet. And they had a discussion after that, and we thought it was such a great experience that we kind of implemented that with Doric, with our own style, of course. I'm a graphic designer, and our secretary works for the film industry. Worshipful Brother Stefano Emilio, he's a master props man, and previously we actually didn't see each other eye to eye. We're coming from very different backgrounds. We have very different political and religious views and all that. And but after we matured a little bit and learned to just champion each other's differences and just focus on Freemasonry, which both him and I really love, we emerged to be like a power duo, for our lodge. So I would provide him with the graphics, we'd talk about ideas, and he'd set up our banquet. And every Mason who go to visit, they're just, they're amazed by the transformation that our lodge have gone through in a relatively short period of time. So we went from being the misfits to now we're the misfits. We're proud. We've taken on that name. We're the Misfit Lodge, and we're quite proud of it. You should visit us sometime.
I would love to visit Doric Lodge, and yeah, what you're talking about, right? It's I think most Masons have experienced, if not their own, they've known of or heard of, or it's in their district, right? A lodge that's struggling, and it's great to hear, right? What you had said about it, just give it a year and see if we can't turn it around, right? Like,
Yeah,
I do think, and this is just my own personal opinion. I don't speak for a Grand Lodge, or I don't speak for anything other than myself, right? I do think in Freemasonry, oftentimes we're far too quick to give up on a lodge, or to decide it needs to amalgamate or or go dark, or pick your term, as opposed to giving it a go. And I think it comes from different areas. That a lot of times it comes from just exhaustion on the part of the membership that's already there. If you have a small group that is trying to keep it alive, right, they can get tired, or whatever it is, right? And I think that but again, you never know what can happen, and how things can change if, you have the right guy in there, or, you put forth the effort. And I think a lot of times lodges are far too quick to kind of go with the nuclear option, if you want to call it that.
I completely agree. I think some people focus a little bit too much on the analytics and the trends, and they notice a trend going that way, and they go, okay, you know what, that's it. Instead of us getting humiliated, we just cut it right there. And I mean, that has its merits, because that means that you're actually looking forward and trying to mitigate any damages or anything of that nature. But if they get too hasty, you're absolutely right. Then they miss the opportunity of giving a lodge that redemption that they so desperately need. Sometimes it becomes like a hero story almost. You're a nobody, and then a big challenge happened. You accepted the challenge. You accepted mentors, and I must mention, okay, now we're talking about the hero's journey. We would have not made it if past masters from different lodges did not affiliate with us. And we have two of them, worshipful brother, no, very worshipful brother Ben San Juan, from Remembrance Lodge, and worshipful brother Victor Rubinov from Mount Sinai Pillars. Worshipful brother Rubinov he's turning 90 years old actually, but still very sharp. And during the times when we're about to go dark, he came to our lodge and said, you know what, I'm affiliating with you guys. I'm not going to get involved with the politics. I'm not going to get involved with the planning and all that, but I'm going to be there to sit down so you guys can make a quorum and you can actually open, you know. And same thing with very worshipful brother Ben San Juan, coming from a different lodge, and it's the same thing. Oh, you guys got the passion for Freemasonry, but nobody knows about the administrative stuff. Nobody's doing the cornerstone planning. Nobody's delegating things, like, and we're not timely. And they came in, and that helped. People from other lodges seeing and coming, just coming together and helping each other out. It's such a big that's what Freemasonry is all about, the building and putting together of the talents.
Well, it's everything, right? I mean, you got to care about everything. You got to care about everything more than anything, right? You got to care about the ritual. You got to care about the administrative side of it. You got to care about the banquets. You got to care about the design. or design your summons. You got to, right? You can't, obviously on an individual basis, every Mason is going to have areas which he focuses greater on or less on or whatever it is, right? They'll have his specialties or his interests, and that'll be kind of where his Masonic journey goes. But as a lodge, right, a lodge as a whole has to take the time to care about everything, whether it's the administrative or the ritual, or else you get these situations where you might have a really strong lodge in terms of ritual, but it's not getting its L forms in on time or whatever it is, right? And then that creates its own set of problems down the line, or vice versa. It might have all of its administrative stuff on point, but it's not able to perform ritual adequately. So you have
Absolutely.
to care about everything, is what I always say.
Right, right. And that is encoded too in our ritual, second degree, if I'm not mistaken, that you're going to get pulled from all directions. Okay. But your goal is to continuously find your center, because that is the point where you cannot just make mistakes, right? You're remaining in the center. You're getting pulled from all direction, and that's fine. You're not leaning towards there. You're not leaning towards the other side. You're just maintaining your equilibrium in the middle. And that reminded me of an ancient stone relief in Cambodia, the ruins, and the relief is I think it's a group of beings, and they're pulling a rope or a giant stick, and they're churning a giant like a cauldron, like a pot, and it's the churning of the butter or something like that. And I think the whole idea is that you don't try to lean, you don't put too much pressure or churning on just one side, but it's a continuous flow. That way, there's a certain balance to it, and that is that is management. That is the WM. That is welcome to management. It's finding the balance and just making it work.
Moving on to what I started talking about at the start, right? Fraternal ties, although I'm wondering if you brought this into Doric Lodge at all, and if you could talk about that, but fraternal ties in particular, right, is maybe not the major, but definitely a major producer of Masonic content. Your Instagram accounts, your Facebook accounts, right? You're always, it seems like, posting something, and not always, or maybe even not often, about fraternal ties itself, but rather just, Masonic memes and Masonic content. So tell me a little bit about that. Like, where did the idea or the impetus come to start posting Masonic content on social media? And particularly, there is a fair bit of, and you kind of see exploding right now, Masonic podcasts and Masonic writings, like most of it, Cameron Bailey, like longer form
Right.
content, or Masonry Today, which is an awesome resource. But the meme format, I don't see that very often in Freemasonry. So where in particular did that kind of come from? That
Yeah.
the idea to focus on memes.
Not very long ago, people and Freemasons, when they go to Fraternal Ties page, they get a little confused as to what it is exactly. And the reason for that is, for the longest time, I have used it as a personal page. If you scroll down far enough, you'll see me doing boxing and or skating with my kids or cooking and just documenting my daily life. And it's not even Masonic. It's just me having fun with my kids, doing stuff with the wife, doing gardening, and it's been like that for the longest time. But the meme format that is kind of blowing up right now, I started that just the continuous posting. I started about a month or so ago. I actually disappeared from social media for several months, from November until about last month. And then when I came back, I decided, you know what, I'm gonna focus on making memes. Besides, that is actually the I would consider it the lifeblood of Fraternal Ties when we started. In 2008, I created two graphic two posters. Okay, one of them is a meme that says what others think of me as a Freemason. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but it goes what my mom thinks what I do, what my friends think I do, and then it goes on and on. And at the end of it, what I really do, it's just some guy washing dishes, right? And I created that when I was the steward of my lodge, because I would stick around and help and wash dishes, which I still do, because our past masters have done the same thing, and but that's how it started, from that one meme. And being a guy with anxiety, who's having difficulty, well, during the time, I'm a little more talkative now because of the repeated exposure therapy with Freemasonry, where I'm free to talk, and I don't have the, nobody's gonna bully me. We're all mature and professional, so it got developed, and now I can talk on and on. But back in the day, it's easier for me to express myself in comedy and in graphics, as opposed to going out and actually expressing myself. So that is kind of how it started. And it just went on to this day. And now I have access to a lot of videos which are easier to download, and it just made it easier. So in a day I can produce several of them. So it may seem like our page is actually a lot of those things, but for many, many years it's more of a personal page. And to a degree, that is actually the thing that made our brand strong, because we have followers who feel a part of our family. And there was a time when we've been frauded, and we had some problems with production and all that. We've had several customers going as far as actually sending us money, and that blew my, I'm like, whoa. It really goes to show that, you know uh I don't have to market the quality of the products, but I can just show the quality of the life that I'm trying to live. And somehow people react pretty good to that. They make a connection, and they don't forget you.
Yeah, what has the response been like since you've started posting specifically kind of these memes and the shorter form content? You said it's only been about a month or so. Did
That
you
I've
see an
been
increase
regular.
in, yeah, regular? Did you see an increase in your engagements, in your response from your social media, kind of across the platforms? Um,
Yeah,
and so
it did.
what's that increase been like, and has it brought new people to Fraternal Ties? And do you think also, as much as you can measure it, kind of newer people just into learning more about Freemasonry in general?
Absolutely. I've had several younger men actually messaging me, telling me that they've since been, they became Freemasons because of the page. We have two members in our lodge that we initiated, who've known about Freemasonry because of my postings in Reddit. One of them was a follower of Fraternal Ties, and he's following me because of the martial art and skateboarding and the cooking stuff, and he became a Freemason. He was actually, it's funny how it worked. So he's a follower of social media, my social media, and my wife and our kids, we were eating out at a restaurant, and out of nowhere I got a message from somebody, and it's like, hey, you probably don't know me, but I'm a follower for a long time. And do you happen to be wearing a red jacket? And are you with these kids and that? And I showed it to my wife and my eldest, and they're freaking out. They're like, "Oh my God, you're being stalked!" And but anyway, I look at the profile of the person, and he seems to be a very respectable individual. And so I started talking to him, and once in a while he would ask if I can, if we can go have a chat about life in general over coffee. And he would ask, and I would say yes, and then at the last minute I'd realize that I'm actually busy because I have four kids, right? Until finally I'm like, hey, listen, me and my friends, we're gonna have a dinner together. why not you come join us? But you got to wear a suit and tie. And he's like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, I'd go. And that was November, and he went. And that was the first time that we did our triangular banquet setup, courtesy of our secretary, worshipful brother Stefano Emilio, with candlelight and all. So he went in and experienced the banquet and experienced the brotherhood that we have, and he signed up for affiliation from there. He's a young man in his 20s, I think, and yeah, that's the power of social media. Now, talking about the stats, right? Um, 60% of our users are actually US based. Canada is about 7% only of that. Not very long ago, our main demographic belonged to the 45 to 65 age group, because during the early days of Fraternal Ties, I would post about memes, but they're more serious memes, And I talk a lot about some philosophy stuff, and I guess the elder generation respond well to that. But and I posted this actually in Instagram stories. You can check it. In the past 90 days, we have reached 100,000 new users, and the most engaged demographic now belongs to the 25 to 35 age group. And so it's our most engaged group within the past 90 days. So that is quite a big change from the previous 45-year-old all the way to 25. So now we know that we are connecting well with the impressionable young man, and I think it's good because these young men, they tend to follow the likes of Andrew Tate, Joe Rogan, and I like Joe Rogan, but I think they're very curious. They want to know more. A lot of them are actually kind of getting burnt out with the with social media and all that. So they kind of go there, and they have a very particular way of asking questions, And I think the meme format actually speaks well to them. It's something that they understand. If they have questions, I engage them. uh, Another demographic that we have attracted for quite is the some radical groups who like to attack Freemasonry, and I used to engage
Before
them.
we before we jump onto to that, because that's a whole
Yeah,
topic in and of itself, I'm curious, you talked about the increase in users and the age demographics. Do you have the breakdowns in terms of platforms? How much growth are you seeing on Instagram versus Facebook? You mentioned Reddit as well. Do you have any ideas on like the breakdowns of where you're seeing the most growth in your most growth
we
in users or engagements?
we have I think we have a bigger followership in Facebook, but the most engaged users are coming from Instagram, and that is actually my own doing. The Facebook page I started in 2010, but I kind of neglected it because I don't control, I don't maintain my own personal Facebook page. I'm kind of more an Instagram guy, and the reason being was I feel that people in Facebook are more, they go in depth with their feelings, and they try to debate you more, and they try to convert you, and when they want to tell you that you're wrong with your ways. And I think that is because most people who use Facebook have access to a keyboard, whereas Instagram users are just, they're using their phone. They don't want to type long thoughts, and to me it's a more visual medium. So for some time, the most engaged is actually the Facebook page, but as of late, it's been Instagram that is getting a lot of attention. And the posting that goes to our Facebook page is actually just mirrored of Instagram. I would post it in Instagram, and it automatically posts it in Facebook.
So before I switched the subjects, you were talking about the type of engagements that you've been seeing an increase in both positive, but also, I think, as anybody who's been on social media, with almost anything, but certainly Freemasonry, right? There's also the negative side of it, whether it be conspiracy theorists or pick your terms, the people who have a negative view of Freemasonry, um, wherever or however that may come from. So, as you are more public and as you are more engaged in the online space, part of that comes with attracting the attention of people with a negative view of Freemasonry. So, what's your experience been like with that aspect of social media?
It can be a little painful for me because most of the attacks are actually coming from my fellow Christians. I usually don't engage in that kind of thing. But if I get pressed on, I would express my thoughts about it, right? And I would tell them my views about Christianity. I've spoken about it in the past, and I'm not afraid of talking about it again. I'm a follower of Christ, but I don't necessarily worship him as a deity. I don't see it that way. And from the particular brand of Christianity that I was baptized in, and that's Roman Catholicism, where I'm excommunicated. I'm not technically allowed to go to church and have communion. And if I pass away tomorrow, I'm not gonna get my last rites as a Christian. And you know, uh, Christian individuals would usually go to my page, see a meme, and they go, "Repent now, accept Christ," and this and that, and I go, "Wait, I'm Christian," and then they'd go passive aggressive first, and then I'd share my own thoughts again, and it always ends with, Have you heard of the Hitler defense or something like that, where it says that all arguments would end with somebody saying that the other guy is like Hitler. So for me, it always ends with them calling us, Luciferians, or that we worship Satan and all that. And I have found a way to actually deal with them successfully, but deep inside, I know that it hurts in a way because I'm Christian, they're Christian, our views are completely different, and they're trying to force upon us a view that they probably got from somewhere, which is just a repetition of the Leo Taxil hoax that happened back in the 18th century, which is still being promulgated. And I tell them, you're more willing to spend the time and energy chasing these things as opposed to making a real connection with a real Freemason, perhaps befriending and having an actual conversation. No, they won't do that. They'd rather go to sources that they don't know about, because I guess people love to fear.
Well, yeah, they love it's. I've been trying to. We're talking with a couple maybe sociologists about getting them on the podcast, right? It's very interesting how I don't people. It's almost like people need to feel like they're in the know about something, or they know something
Yeah,
everybody else doesn't. So
right.
for some people, right, it kind of becomes like Freemasonry is the thing, right? And they know the truth about Freemasonry that the rest of the world doesn't, or it's one of those things where and other people find other boogeymen out there, right? But Freemasonry certainly can be an easy one to find for people for whatever reason. Yeah, and it's interesting because I have had brothers, Masonic brothers, right, suggest that kind of the best way to deal with this, the best way to deal with with the conspiracy theorisms or the whatever you want to call it, the anti-Masonic kind of sentiment that exists online, is to just be as private and as quiet about Freemasonry as possible, which seems to me to be not a healthy approach.
No,
Because I don't see them. I don't, it's not as though my response is always, well, the quieter we get, the louder they'll get.
exactly.
Right. It seems to me that being open and honest about Freemasonry is the best approach to take. But I mean, being open and honest about anything is usually the best approach to take in life, right?
Yeah, that's why memes work, because people see it's very short form and they can relate to it, and they would see Freemasons talking about it, how it's just, we're just people having fun in a way, but we put a lot of meanings to those things that people consider as mundane, like ideas about honor and virtue and gratitude and all that. That I think that is what Freemasonry does. Like, you're a piece of rock, but we're gonna work on you and ornament you, and you become part of a greater whole, and that is something else, right? And yeah, it is such a it's quite a ride, and it is true that Freemasonry really uh, uh, it can help an individual come up to new realizations about life and about everything in general, just from exploring the simple concepts that Freemasonry presents to us.
Well, and I like what you said about how the meme format are relatable, right? You don't have to be a Freemason to kind of understand what's happening in a meme. Certainly, as a Freemason, you're going to relate to it more, or you might get some extra meaning out of it, right? But that's the beautiful thing about a meme, is because it's so short and so quick. People, whether you are Freemason or not, you're going to be able to find some humor in it and some understanding in it, right? And I think that is a really valuable tool for public relations, for whatever you want to call it, right? Because like you said, right, we're people, and we're just people having fun, and having fun is a big part of the craft, and so communicating that, I think, is a really important thing.
It's so funny you mentioned that, because if you look at the stats of my page, um, the engaged people from my own follower base is actually just at about 7,000 out of the 11 or 12,000 followers, and the vast majority, like we're talking over 70%, is actually people from the outside that is constantly watching the memes, and some of them would actually message me telling me how they're not Freemasons, but they just enjoy watching it. Like, I guess it's the same as, there are people from other professions, like a mechanic or a farmer or a nurse, and just showing their daily lives, and people who watch them are not necessarily nurses or mechanics or farmers. They're just people enjoying, watching other people do their craft. And I think it's it's in our nature to do that, to watch and observe and just enjoy people having fun and being good at what they do.
Well, yeah, I couldn't agree more, right? Um the biggest complaint I have with Freemasonry or Freemasons, right, is we seem to not be able to most people, it seems as though Freemasonry, or to call yourself a Freemason, right, is a membership-based designation. So saying that you're a Freemason is like saying you're a member of a music academy. It references the card you have in your pocket, as opposed to the way I view it and the way you kind of discussed, right? It's a skills-based designation first and foremost,
Mhm.
right? To be, if I were to say I'm a musician, there's an implication that I have skill in um, in the art of music, whether it's playing an instrument or singing or whatever it is, right? It's to imply that I have a certain level of skill to call myself a musician. Being a musician and being a member of a music academy are not the same thing. Or being a weightlifter or being a member of a gym are not the same thing, right? And I think with Freemasonry, it's the same idea, right? Ultimately, I think to be a Freemason at the level some of us are trying to do it at, it takes a lot of skill and ability, right? You talked about the idea of you need to be a good manager. You need to be able
Yeah,
to manage as Orishal Master. You need to be able to
right.
manage and administer your lodge, and you need to know how to organize people and know how to delegate. And I really like the way you said it because I think people respond to skill is how I've always viewed it. So the reason people enjoy content from, say, cooks or farmers or mechanics is not because they necessarily give a shit about cooks or farmers or mechanics. It's because they appreciate or the skill and ability it takes to be that is shown through in the work and in the content. And I think it's just like what you're saying, right? You're trying to show, Freemasonry, it's guys having fun. It's also guys working very hard. And it's also, there's a level of skill involved.
That's
And
what it is.
that skill, I think, is something that if we can communicate that, no, it takes a lot of skill to be good at being a Freemason. I think that will cause people to find content more appealing and more interesting.
That is right, but unfortunately, you cannot make everyone happy. So there's a number of Freemasons who are actually not fans of the meme format as well. Some of them get outright upset about that.
Well, I mean, don't worry. If you want to start a club, you and me can start a club of people who have maybe upset some Masons with different things. So don't worry about it. We can be in a club together. Um, but I can speak for myself when I say I think that the work you're doing in the meme format is very cool. It's entertaining. I know all the guys I talked about in my lodge love it. And it's they're all following. So I just think it's great to see the work you're putting into to communicating Freemasonry through this format, right? Which again we've seen a rise in podcasts, we've seen a rise in essays and things online. We haven't really seen the rise of memes as much. And so I think they've all been wonderful and so relatable for myself and for non-Masons, right? Which is what you want.
That is awesome. Thank you. I'm happy to know.
Yeah, well, keep doing what you're doing because whether it be the work with Doric, um, kind of taking a misfit lodge and making it the misfit lodge, but making it a lodge that's strong and growing, whether it's Fraternal Ties and great products, or whether it's
Oh, thank you.
um, or whether it's kind of using social media content to promote the lighter and the funner and the side of the or the lighter and the more fun side of the craft. I think a lot of the work you're doing is wonderful. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. You're talking about labor, and if I may speak with my background as a Christian, um, Adam and Eve when they were created, and they ate that fruit from the tree of knowledge, and then they got banished from the from paradise, and the Lord said that from now on you're gonna sweat, you're gonna use your muscle, you're gonna work just so you can have something to eat and you can support your family and all that, and that is labor, and that is a part of being um, uh, a sentient being, a thinking and feeling individual, knowing that you have to work, you have to labor. And at first, especially coming from, like, if you're younger, labor may seem daunting. It's a lot of difficult things, but the more you do it, the more you realize that there's actually there is a lot of joy to be had from labor, not to mention the fruits, but just the act of getting good at what you do. And the benefit of if you can help your family and the people beyond your family, then labor becomes quite a fulfilling thing to do. So Freemasonry is a lot of labor, but a lot of things, we benefit from the side effects of it.
No, I agree. We benefit and the community as a whole benefits, I think
Absolutely.
is 100% true. So it's been great to talk to you on social media. It's been great to see you in person, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in person again, not so far down the line. So
That is right.
thank you so much for taking the time.
My friend, the pleasure is mine.